the future that was born 100 years ago. I am the purpose that emerged with India's independence to be a force for business that makes doing good our business. Towards an independence where knowledge sets us free. To think big and achieve bigger. To take India to the world and the world to India. Creating pathways of self-reliance. To stand for progress, the planet and the people. Towards a future made perfect. And be a force creating abundance. Because independence is not a moment in history. It's a never-ending path to prosperity. Aditya Birla Group, a force for good.
Very good morning to all of you. Very glad to be here. Thank you, People Konnect, LinkedIn, and Poonam is not there, but thanks to her too for giving us this forum. So Indriya is a new baby in the Aditya Birla family. We are the jewelry business. The organization is just 2 years old, and we opened our first set of stores last year in July. So before we delve into what we do and what we are trying to create, just a brief snapshot on the competitive landscape or the jewelry industry that we operate in, just to give a context on what the challenges we face and how we are overcoming it. So India is one of the biggest jewelry market in the world. The market size is 3 lakh crore plus, and it is projected to increase by 13% per annum in the next 7 years. Retail is the dominant channel, and Aditya Birla has invested about 5K crores of capex for the next 10 years into this business. On the competition landscape, so we have 5 kind of jewelry competitors. One, which are our typical family jewelers, which have 1 stores in a city or so. Then we have some large independent jewelers who are predominantly dominant in a region. Then comes the regional and national players, and then some channels which are only dominant in digital space. Now, majority of the jewelry industry is unorganized. The reason I'm highlighting is this, because this poses challenge for the talent availability. Before I delve into that, now, why gender diversity is important for us? Any guesses? Why is gender diversity important for a jewelry company? Exactly. 80% of our consumers are women buyers, typically in the age group of 25 to 55. So a sales representative who is a woman tends to understand what the person sitting in front of her wants, the kind of pitch the person needs to do, to understand the consumer needs. That is the prime reason why gender diversity in our channel of business is very, very important. Also, Novel Jewels, or Indriya, has a culture tenet around innovation. So a diverse team generally helps to create a very creative and innovative environment and innovative outputs. Also, brand equity building, because an inclusive policy and inclusive culture kind of rings bell with the new generation that comes into foray. So right from the start, we were very clear that we need to delve and bring in women into our sales workforce. Our sales workforce ecosystem comprises of 2 segments. One, which is non-store, which is your typical zonal, regional, and area business managers who are responsible for the set of stores in their area, directly responsible for P&L for that set of stores. Then we have the frontline workforce, which comprises of the store staff, the floor managers, and the store managers. So when we set on this journey, we were faced with some challenges. As I said, jewelry industry is very, very unorganized and has dominance of, very surprising, has a dominance of male workforce. Prime reason around this being that, let's take an example of a jewelry store. So typically, a jewelry store closes at around 8:30 for a consumer. But the back-end activity keeps going on. there is tallying, there is proper numbering that goes on, and the store for back-end activity remains open till 10 or 11 o'clock. Now, generally, for a lady, it's difficult to travel late at night every day. So most of the regional players, most of the family jewelers, they deploy male staff. So we were faced with this challenge of non-availability of talent in the market. How did we overcome it? Some steps that we took in this direction. We designated few positions as to be only filled by female. Through that approach, we were able to tap into 20% of our non-store positions through female and 45% of our frontline workforce through females, which is an industry standard in jewelry for any organization. When we started doing this, we were faced with some unintentional bias by the hiring managers. Now, we used to typically get these queries that, Swati, this lady is wonderful with numbers. What a sharp mind. But, she's just recently got married. I don't know if she can come 6 days a week, if she can work long hours. I mean, who are you to decide that? You need to, if the lady sitting in front of you says that, yes, she can do it, she can do it. So that kind of, unintentional biases, we held long communications, segmented workshops for our hiring managers to remove this these unintentional biasness, and through that we were able to achieve the target that we had set for our initial years. Now, as I said, the talent is very limited in the market, so we had to build a pipeline. We would not be able to rely on the lateral market for long. So we started leveraging the campus. We started communicating to our targeted campuses about why the sales segment is a go-to segment for a female, how you can thrive there, how you can directly impact an organization's bottom line there. And we were able to garner some traction. Also, this year, we launched our first female-only store management trainee batch, wherein we hired about 15 female from across campuses, and they are being trained for 1 year. Next year, after training, they would be deployed as store managers, floor managers in our respective stores. Now, this 1 year of training involves 1 month training on product to make them understand on the kind of product they are dealing with, and rest 11 months on the job training. Similarly, for the non-store positions that we hired from campus, we have deployed a 90-day training period during which they shadow the already existing sales manager in the organization and learn on the job. Then we also have a buddy program. So all the new joiners, including females, they are assigned a buddy who is typically in the role that they have been hired for. And that buddy kind of, for 1 year serves as a go-to point for that person in terms of mentoring, in terms of guiding, in terms of expectations, etc. Now, we have done all this to attract the kind of profile we want to in the organization. Now, we need to develop them. We need to give them that kind of psychological safety, that kind of workspace, that kind of work safety, which helps them to thrive in the organization. So being part of Aditya Birla Group, the kind of diverse policies that the group has, it automatically flows to us, whether it be in the flexibility in the travel policy, the work safety policies, the maternity policies. I think we are one of the industry leaders in that. So that automatically comes. Apart from that, we did some 2 to 3 steps. As I said, female, especially our frontline staff, they have concerns around waiting late till night in the stores. So what we've done is that we have deployed 3 work shifts in our retail stores. The morning shift starts for a female worker, and it'll end at 8 p.m. After 8 p.m., no females are allowed to stay in our stores. So that kind of gives them that, stability and that psychological safety. Also, all our female employees are taken through self-defense training, which is a 1-week training, because they commute from faraway places, just to equip them for the ecosystem that they are part of. So, this is what we've done till now, and as we move forward, we tend to build on this. So right now, we are at 20% and 45% of our targets, as in of our positions being filled by women workforce. We are, for this year, we are targeting 25% of our non-stop positions in sales and 50% of our frontline positions to be filled by women workers. And how do we do that? We continue to challenge the mindset. We continue to build on our hiring intentions. This year, we are also launching a special mentoring and coaching program for our women in sales to groom them to take up leadership position in the organization. And also some very structured capability building programs and trainings to equip them, to groom them to move forward. So I think that's it from my end. And I would end by an attempt to a sales pitch. This is our masterpiece Gulposh necklace. We have amazing discounts going on diamonds. Please visit your nearest Indriya stores and shop. Thank you.
रही है। 1.5 लाख से ज्यादा महिलाएं 25 से भी ज्यादा सेवाएं दिलाकर पा रही हैं आर्थिक आजादी। पे नियर बाय डिजिटल नारी, अब तेरी बारी।
Thank you so much, LinkedIn, People Konnect, for giving us this opportunity. As you can see, we are people who are more comfortable in the field than boardrooms and conference rooms. And as I struggle with this 15 minutes, I hope you bear with me. Women, as you know, in the previous conversations that happened on stage, as you have seen and as we see around us, we have kind of entered into all men bastions, right? Whether it is science, technology, health, anywhere you see, we have made ourselves present, so why not sales? And we have a natural affinity for sales because sales to a large extent involves relationship, involves understanding of consumer behavior, social behavior, involves networking, and who better at it than us? See, all of us who are sitting in this room, we at some point, you know, we have got the privileged backgrounds, whether supportive and that there could be a degree of support that we have got from our families, but we did manage to get the education, the backing of our families to be where we are today. The segment that we represent here, unfortunately, have not got those privileges. And it is for us now to ensure that you and I who are sitting in this room, the privileges that we enjoy today, how can we extend that to a larger community? At Pay Nearby, we are at heart a financial inclusion company. For the last 10 years, what we have achieved is trying to ensure banking, health, insurance, things that are required to lead a healthy life, things that are required to progress in life, go to the last mile citizens. If you look at the banking ecosystem around us, the concentration of ATMs, the concentration of bank branches, unfortunately today are limited to top 10-15% of our population. In a remote village in Balasore or Midnapur or anywhere in the country, people often have to go 20-25 kilometers just to access basic banking. And at Pay Nearby, what we have done is in the last 10 years ensured that there are more than 12 lakh banking points that are run by local kirana shops that ensure banking reach the last mile. When we were at it, what we also wanted to understand is, while we have made banking available to rural households, why is it that women still lag behind? Why is it that there is still a gender gap in financial inclusion? Why is it that women are not opening that many savings accounts or are not protecting themselves from the vulnerabilities that any kind of external shock will give them? And what came out very, very strongly is that while women today, especially in remote areas of the country, are the ones who are saving for the family. And we know that very well, right? If you look at our mothers or our sisters, and you look at, if you happen to come from, a tier 2 or beyond, town, you would know that they are the ones who are saving, and probably saving surreptitiously without the knowledge of family. हम बोलते पल्लू के बीच में, चावल के डब्बे में, the dabba banks that exist in India. So when women are saving, why are they not saving formally, was the question that we needed to answer. And what came out strongly is that if you look at the service providers that are there in remote areas of the country, they are very male dominated. And our social structures are such that often women find it difficult to approach a man for anything, whether it is consuming a service or anything else. So the opportunity was to create female service providers who could be trained to then make accessibility a reality in remote parts of the country. And at Digital Nari, that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to create community influencers who are women, and if you look at the profile of this woman, most of them are first-time entrepreneurs. They are actually real-life women in sales who may not have the privileged background that you and I have. But it is our responsibility now to go and spend time with them, to train them, to make them so skilled that they could be, what you and I are representing here, they could be that in their hometowns, in the remote areas of the country, in areas that probably today, you wouldn't even have a bus, often have a bus also to go to, it's that remote. We have more than 150,000 such women who work with us. But there are 6 lakh villages in the country, and the opportunity to create such community influencers at the grassroots, create women in sales, I think it's a big necessity for a country like us. Given the distributed geography that India is, unless we can create such rural women in sales providers, we will not really be able to close the gender gap that exists in the country, from whether it is healthcare accessibility, financial accessibility, digital accessibility, you name it. If we have to bridge the gap, we have to ensure that we create more and more such women at the last mile. While the flavor of what I've said may be a little different from what you have been hearing throughout the day in this room, the earnest request is, I think we will all know from our backgrounds, areas, women who could benefit from this opportunity. And today, while we work with various government agencies, NGOs, community-based organizations to expand the reach of our network, If you know of such women who can benefit from the program, we would like to work with you in expanding the network and ensuring that we create actual impact at the last mile. Thank you.
Hi, thank you everyone. Good afternoon. Already the afternoon yet or still morning? Okay. My name is Sandhya and I'm here to talk a little bit about our journey at Godrej Consumer Products, and joining me is Bhavya, who actually anchors the India sales function. I'll talk a little bit before we break into the video, and if we could just go to, I'll talk a little bit just about, how D&I gets structured with Godrej, right? And Godrej Consumer Products, in fact, is part of the Godrej Industries group. You'll see that in our business philosophy, we typically talk about, ensuring that there's progress on people and planet along besides profit, right? So I feel like it's very ingrained into, just the business's philosophy, firstly. Secondly, you'll see a lot of it integrated with our values, right? So even if you talk about any of our 6 values, whether it's being bold, whether it's showing respect, you'll see inclusion as a, underlying behavior that pretty much kind of cuts across all those 6 values. We'll come to our strategy, and when you talk about strategy, you'll see our CEOs, of course, like most other companies, talk about volume growth and other measures quite frequently, whether it's town halls or conversations. But a place that we also reserve for, org level conversations is how are we doing just in terms of diversity. Do we represent the social fabric of any of the locations that we are part of? And we're part of about 14 different countries. But in India, you'll also see that most of our purchasers, right, our end consumers are women. Almost 60 to 70% of our end consumers are women. So we also try and create space to measure that, right? And all of this will fall flat if we didn't invest in the structure. So we have a very strong group level structure that looks at diversity, equity and inclusion. We have a council headed by our chairperson, Nisaba, who takes a lot of active interest quarterly to figure out how all of us are doing, where are the struggles, where is it that we need to have a social narrative. And at each of the group companies, we work very collaboratively, because we also realize that if we just add on D&I as an additional portfolio for either HRBPs or for a COE team, it doesn't maybe get the, the problem solving that it truly deserves, right, from a cohort-based perspective. So we work very closely with the HRBPs, and right now we'll talk a little bit more about sales. So before I invite Bhavya in to talk about the journey, if we can just have the video played.
ऐसे बोलते हैं ना कि पानी में गिरने के बाद में तैरना तो आ ही जाता है, उसी तरह से सेल्स में एक बार गिरने के बाद में सेल्स तो आ ही जाता है. सेल्स मतलब ऐसे कोई बहुत बड़ा रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, सिर्फ आपका कम्युनिकेशन क्लियर होना चाहिए, लोगों के साथ में बात करने के लिए आना चाहिए, सेल्स हो जाता है. थोड़ी जगह बनानी तो काफी है ज़मीन, फिर मैं भी सुनाऊं ये मेरी जिंदगी, थोड़ा आसमां मेरा भी है, थोड़ी है ज़मीन. टिपिकली और राजस्थान में मारवाड़ी फैमिलीज में सेल्स इज समथिंग, हाँ जी साहब जाओगे एक एक दुकान पे और तुम तो साबुन बेचोगे जी.
But initially when I used to go to the market, every shopkeeper was like, हाँ बेटा क्या चाहिए. See, every time ये challenge आता है हर month, it's a crucial month for us.
So எனக்கு ஆஃபீஸில் உட்காரணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை, எப்பயுமே லேப்டாப் பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லை. என்னால் நிறைய பீப்புள்ஸை சந்திக்க முடியும்.
In Godrej, like, people are very much like, they respected me so much for this, for my, for who I am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Good morning still. So we started our journey of women in sales quite seriously about 2 years ago, where we said in the sales function, our critical mass was defined as 15%, and we said, let's get to a 15%. Then we systematically, structurally increase representation. As is evident from the video, we do sales, the most traditional form of sales, which is literally going shop to shop, going on a beat, taking orders. So it's a physically intensive activity. Very happy to share that we did achieve the critical mass at 15%. General trade, organized trade, we're touching about 40%. Of course, that's a slightly different way of doing sales, but I think what it really took for us was a lot of sponsorship from the top. We mandated that we want to get to this point, and a lot of sponsorship right from our leadership, which is the CEO, to the sales head, till the last mile, which is your area sales managers, were bought into this initiative. We're in the FMCG space where sales talent is fairly limited. We're all kind of fighting for the same talent. So while we looked at that being one of our sources, what we also realized is that collectively, we need to build more talent. We need to just increase the talent in the market. And how do we kind of build that capability for the future? So what we essentially did was, we went to campuses. These are women who've majored in sales and marketing. The idea was to offer them internships, because we also understand traditional sales may be not everyone's cup of tea. They experience our ecosystem for 2 months. They come, they do the grunt work. We experience them, right? We experience what their motivators are, whether they're a good fit, whether there's a synergy that we can build, and then we kind of take them on in the organization. What that leads to is the Arambh traineeship model that we had defined, which is also another source for us. We looked at women not just from campuses, but from fields outside of FMCG, which would mean that they would still need to be trained a little bit more in the FMCG ways of working before we can place them in full-time roles. So we typically do a 9-month immersion integration program where women come in, experience the day in the life of a sales person. They are mentored and guided by people who've been doing sales for a long time, and they get the opportunity to really get into the nitty-gritties and the nuances of sales before they take on independent charge of a territory, so as to say. The third model, which I think a lot of organizations already have, which is your management trainee entry-level manager program. I think we've been doing this for the past 11, 12 years. But the last 2 years, what we've tried to do differently is be very, very conscious of the diversity hires that we bring in our sales and marketing internships. For us, doing a sales stint is absolutely necessary for anyone to transition into marketing. And today we try and do a 50-50 diversity ratio hiring for these interns and therefore conversion to also infuse women not just at the entry level, but also at the managerial level in our organization. The idea is to say, how do we build talent not just for our organization, but also for the FMCG sector in general? How do we get more women to enter the workforce? So while the last 2 years primarily have been focusing on increasing our representation and getting to that critical mass, I think we're very conscious of the fact that anything now has to be far more structured, far more systematic, and far more self-sufficient in terms of a process. So what we're doing in collaboration with the DI team extensively is talking a lot more about safety, about POSH in the organization. And this is not just for the women who come in, but also for the managers who are expected to handle these women, for the distributors who they meet beyond the ambit of the organization, for the retailers who the distributors can hold accountable to, right? We do have a POSH hotline. We have a mechanism where we sensitize periodically women on what are some of their rights, how is it that they should behave in the market, and essentially it's really to say, how is it that they don't have to live with discomfort when they're going to the market, and sensitizing them about that. From an infrastructure perspective, I think we expect our women to go to all corners of the country today. So we've done a partnership with Vulu, which enables you to use washrooms listed on their platform. We also do distributor washroom audits. Essentially, after a day of working, these women will go typically to a distributor point, meet up with their team. The idea is to ensure that there are absolutely clean washrooms available for women to use there. Our travel policy, I think we build a culture of flexibility. So while there's a policy in place, we encourage flexibility of usage in that policy, especially for women. As an organization, GCPL and the Godrej group, we don't have a sick leave cap. I think the idea is that if you're sick, you take as many days off. We encourage women on the field to make use of that. We give them the flexibility to work from home during their menstrual cycle. And just in general, there is just a culture of flexibility that we've been able to build to, for women to exercise some of that. I think what's really working for us, and we do have a journey to make here, is in terms of connect. So between the HRBP, between the DEI team and the women, we're trying to put together a community where they can come, talk about their experiences, talk about some of the challenges that they're facing, and also, sales is a very lonely profession. You're out there in the market, you're not meeting anyone, so just a platform for them to come together and kind of do things together. We're not trying to really do anything very different. It's just the power of doing simple things very, very consistently. Simple things like sending appreciation cards to the families of women, just to give that extra boost to them. The docu-film that you see, I think we talk about it in our organization. We show this at various platforms to just build in that extra appreciation, because we know it takes that for a woman to come and join us on the field. I'll hand over to Sandhya to talk about a few experiments that we're also running.
Yeah, and I think while all of that execution rigor is required internally, right? Because it's not just about the representation, it's about really building an ecosystem where there is a path to success, right? Identify those barriers. So a lot of what Bhavya also spoke about, and I think I resonated with a little bit in the morning, where we spoke about saying going beyond the policy. A lot of our execution rigor in this was built bottom up, because it gave us an insight into what are the barriers that women are facing, and hence what can we come back to and institutionalize as an organization. But having said that, we know that this is collective effort. Honestly, we can keep begging and stealing and borrowing talent from each other, but all of us have a role in, kind of talent building in this industry and ecosystem building. So while we have People Konnect and Anjali's team that supports us on talent mapping and a little bit of talent acquisition, we're also looking at being part of a Women in Sales collective that Aeon is putting together, where we'll have a little bit more capacity to lobby with distributors, a little bit more capacity to use each other's strengths, whether it is washrooms of, say Airtel, who's also in the consortium, that they have across their offices, right? So how can we collectively solve for some of these challenges is what we're looking at through the collective. And another interesting experiment that we've started right now, because so much of our women in sales efforts is a little bit more limited to the metro cities, the tier 1 cities, we realized that women in sport who've been there, and if you look at a lot of the behavioral traits, whether it is a little bit of an unconventional personal journey that they've had within families, being open to them being in sport, or if you look at resilience, you look at grit, you look at just the overall orientation, there are a lot of behavioral strengths that we believe that we can, kind of channelize. And we know that women in sport go to a certain extent, but kind of drop off that, career journey altogether as professional athletes. So we're kind of looking at this as a win-win kind of an experiment program that we're starting with this year. So hopefully we'll have more to talk about in terms of our learnings by the end of this year. So thank you for this opportunity once again.